Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon angelfish tank, and I just want to take a few minutes to talk about it. I'm getting ready to shoot my around the world update video today, but I noticed first of all that my farlowella, or my twig, whiptail catfish, whatever you want to call it, is out on the piece of woodwork, which is unusual. Occasionally I'll see it out on that rock that you can see down on the left hand side of your screen there. But usually I see him hanging on the back of the filter intake, and I can just kind of tell he's there. I don't really get to look at him very clearly. But right now he's actually out and about. Well, out and about as this fish ever seems to get. So really cool looking fish. You can kind of see him from the top, but not really. We got a little too much surface agitation going on, if you want to call that surface agitation. But the main thing I wanted to talk about in this tank is how different it is now. I went in here recently and I did some gravel vacuuming, some very vigorous gravel vacuuming. I'll give you the backstory real quick. I did a cyanobacteria treatment with ChemiClean, and as part of it, I really did some serious scrunching around in the gravel, and I tried to break up the cyanobacteria in the substrate and so on and so forth. I've subsequently shot a video about disrupting the nitrogen cycle because I actually did develop some cloudy water in this tank for a few days afterwards. I'm still not sure that I disrupted the nitrogen cycle. I really don't know how, rooting through my gravel would have done that much damage to the nitrogen cycle. But I don't have, I call it my best working hypothesis. I don't know what else would have disrupted the nitrogen cycle, but I did get a little bit of an ammonia spike, and presumably I probably got a little bit of a nitrite spike within a few days, but I never really worried too much about it. It only took maybe 3 or 4 days for the cloudiness to start going away, and I've done a water change since then, and all that's taken care of and cleared up. But now I'm suddenly getting this weird sort of green, it's a strange sort of algae that's growing all over everything. It's not like any kind of green algae I've ever seen before. It breaks up real easily. I thought at first it was cyanobacteria because I had almost a carpet of it across the substrate again. And you can see some bits of it are still there. And you can tell that's not cyanobacteria. That is definitely some kind of green algae. Now, there's about 10 zillion species of algae out there, so I'm not going to pretend I have any idea which one this is or what to do. I'm not even worried about treating it or anything. I don't think the tank looks bad necessarily. That's not my observation. The observation I want to make, though, is just how head-scratchingly complex the ecosystem within an aquarium is. And the idea for me to think I'm ever going to be able to stand here and explain this is exactly what's happening when I do this or when I do that, or this is, why my water got cloudy. I don't think in a lifetime of real hardcore study would I ever be able to do that fully. And I don't hardcore study aquarium stuff. I study enough to know what I need to know to enjoy my hobby, but that's just it. It's my hobby. I enjoy it. I like keeping fish. If I have to research something because I really need to change something or do something, or I'm having a problem, maybe I've got some curiosity, but my goal is not ever to become like the super ultimate master fish keeper. And as such, I'm never going to be able to grasp even begin to grasp the complexity of what is going on inside one of these fish tanks. Why something as simple as gravel vacuuming and, what happened in this tank to make all that cycle of events happen. And I've got weird new algal growth in here that I've never had before. I had all that stuff growing on the glass yesterday before I wiped it down that I was expecting to be really difficult to come off, like the algae typically is in this tank, and it brushed away as easily as if it was diatom algae, except it was green, sort of stringy, almost like the filamentous hair algae, and yet it wiped away as easily as brown diatoms. And so, what did I do? How in the world did gravel vacuuming my tank cause that much disruption in here? And I just find it fascinating. And the reason I'm really, focused on this now is because I've been kind of thinking about this over the last couple of days anyway. Yesterday I did a lot of water changes around the room, sort of preparing for my Around the World update. And one of the things I kept noticing, and I've noticed over the years with my hang on the back filters, every filter in every tank is different. And what I mean by that is when you pull that filter pad out of there and you look at the stuff that's growing on it, or just the, the dirtiness that's on this pad, the color, the texture, the smell, everything about this will be unique to this tank. And when I pull that filter pad out of another tank, and I need to change that filter now that I got it halfway out like that, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it there. It'll be different. It'll have different coloration. It'll have a different texture to it. Even the stuff that grows in the biomedia a lot of times will be somewhat different. Now, I will admit that that's mostly this stuff, the grungy stuff, is always the same. I will get different stuff that grows along the edge of the water line. Some of my tanks have that white powdery stuff. I assume it's some sort of fungus or mold or something that grows there. I get some that have like some black stuff that grows on them. So that's always different, but this is generally the same, and that's because it really is Nitrosomonas bacteria, and I can't think of the name of the other one off the top of my head, but they are specific species of bacteria, and they grow in all of our biomedia like that. So that's always going to be pretty much the same. As far as all the other stuff, the types of algae, the type of bacteria, all the little microorganisms that make up that soup of life that's in our substrate and in our filters, every single tank seems to be unique. And so while I do my tank maintenance generally the same, it clearly doesn't have the same effect on every tank. If every tank's chemistry is its own chemistry, then doing the exact same thing to this tank that I did to that tank, it's just de facto going to have a different result. And in this case, doing a vigorous gravel vac really did some kind of disruption, and I don't know what it was. I've done vigorous gravel vacs in plenty of tanks, plenty of times before, and I've never disrupted my nitrogen cycle. I've never spurred the growth of some new algae I've never seen before. Again, not really any huge point to this video other than just to point out an observation that I am just fascinated by the complexity of what goes on in these fish tanks. And speaking of that, I also have in mind a video to shoot here in the very near future about some of the various reasons that we have fish die, especially the ones that die unexpectedly. You just come in, you find a fish floating in there in the tank one morning, dead guppy or dead whatever, and we have no idea why. And I just want to shoot a video talking about that, because that's another one of those things that I just think that more often than not we will never know and never get to the bottom of. But again, I want to actually talk in a little more depth about that. So that's it for this video. I just wanted to point that out before I got started on my big video, because I didn't want to stop and spend 5 minutes talking about that in the middle of what's already going to be a half-an-hour video. So thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic down below, so make sure you leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget this is my 20-gallon angelfish tank. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.